This is the second short lesson describing INVEST's measure of student learning growth. I'm John Schachter. In the last class, we described Aldine's measure of student learning growth, and we also shared several of the benefits of growth models for teachers and for schools. Today, our objective is to interpret different learning growth reports that Aldine educators will receive as your school implements INVEST. So each year, your learning growth results will be reported online via the Learning Growth Network. After educators complete the online classes and the short assessment, they'll have access to their learning growth results. When teachers and school leaders log on to the Learning Growth Network, there's really just two types of reports that you need to understand how to interpret. The first report, the one that you're viewing on this slide, is a teacher scatter plot. We're going to learn how to analyze scatter plots in significant detail in just a moment. The second type of report is called a candle and wick chart. We'll interpret candle and wick charts in the next class. Now, don't freak out. I know these reports look a little bit daunting at first, but I'm going to teach you how to examine them step by step. And by the end of this class, you're going to be interpreting scatter plots like an old pro. So let's look at a middle school teacher scatter plot. Each dot on this plot represents one student's pretest and post-test score in this teacher's class. Pretest scores are on the x-axis, post-test scores on the y. So for example, this student had a pretest score of roughly 300 and a post-test score of around 330. Did you notice that some of the dots on this teacher scatter plot are green and others are red? Green dots represent students whose learning growth was above average. Red dots indicate students whose learning growth was below average. Pause the class and compare the number of green dots to red dots on this teacher scatter plot. All right, what you probably saw was there's a lot more green dots than red dots. In fact, there's 44 green dots in this scatter plot and only 9 red dots. What this means is that this teacher produced above average learning growth for 44 out of her 53 students. This teacher is producing learning growth for the vast majority of kids in her class. Now there's another piece of information that this scatter plot communicates. The scatter plot is divided into 3 parts. Right? The left third shows students with low pretest scores. The middle third displays students with average pretest scores. And the right third presents students with high pretest scores. So what you can see from this plot is that the vast majority of green dots are in each third of this scatter plot. And what it shows is that this teacher is producing excellent learning growth with her low achieving students, her middle achieving students, and her high achieving students. Now when you analyze your own scatter plot, there's going to be a table with additional information. So I've pulled that table up here above the plot. In this example, we've been analyzing the teacher Ivy Blue. And we see that her name's Ivy Blue because under teacher it says Blue, comma, I. She teaches 7th grade. We see that under the grade column, that's the number 7. There's 53 students in her growth analysis. That's what that N stands for. That's the number of matched students from one year to the next that were in her analysis. And Mrs. Blue's median class growth percentile is 76, which is an excellent growth percentile. 50's average, 76, spectacular. All right, let's have you interpret a different teacher scatter plot now. Pause the class and describe the learning growth that teacher Melissa P. produced. Answer the questions in your workbook. Melissa P. is an 8th grade teacher. We know that by looking under the grade column. Okay, she is teaching 77 students that are in her analysis. That's what that N stands for. Her median growth percentile is 54, slightly above average. Average growth is 50. And finally, Melissa P. is producing excellent learning growth with her middle achieving students. 22 out of 26 made greater than average learning growth. Look at all those green dots in the middle third of her plot. Now, in terms of her low and high achieving students, she's not producing learning growth for the majority of these kids. There's more red dots in the left third of her plot and more red dots, okay, in the right third of her plot. Let's do one more scatter plot just so that you get a little bit more practice analyzing these. Pause the class and describe the learning growth teacher Alexandria R. produced. Answer the questions in your workbook now. Alexandria R. is a 7th grade teacher with 46 students in her growth analysis. Okay, looking under the grade, we see 7. Looking under the N, we see 46. Okay, her median growth percentile is 30. That's way below average growth of 50. When we look at Alexandria, we see that she's producing excellent learning growth with her low achieving students. 14 out of 15 made greater than average learning growth. Look at all those green dots to the leftmost part of her scatter plot. However, when we look at her middle and high achieving students, she's not producing growth for the majority of these kids. Only 4 out of 15 made learning growth in her middle and 4 out of 16 of her high. A lot more red dots in the middle and right sections of her plot. Let's bring back Ivy Blue's scatter plot and share one more data resource that's available when you interpret your scatter plots. So I pulled back up Ivy Blue, and notice that Ivy Blue's name is hypertext. If you click on her name, it will bring up each of her students' individual learning growth percentiles. So these are some of Miss Blue's 53 students. I've crossed out their names for privacy reasons. The first column lists the year of the analysis. The next is the grade level. Students are in 7th grade. Then we have each student's first name and last name. Again, I've blacked them out. The pretest column shows each student's 6th grade scale score. The post-test column is each student's 7th grade scale score. And finally, we see each student's growth percentile and achievement level. Now, I've highlighted 2 students. Take a moment and see if you can describe their growth and achievement in one sentence. The first student did not meet standards, so this would be a low achieving student who also is a low growing student. He only grew at the 38th growth percentile. The second highlighted student achieved commended performance and grew better than average, 57 SGP. So we'd classify this kid as high growing and high achieving. Let's practice a few more. Pause the class and analyze the 3 highlighted 8th grade students' learning growth and achievement results. First student, low growth, low achievement. Only grew at the 37th percentile, didn't meet the Texas state standard. Second student, high growth, high achievement. Grew at the 59th growth percentile and had commended performance. Third student, super high growth and average achievement. Met the Texas state standard in terms of achievement, but grew at the 90th growth percentile. So scatter plots are really a great tool for teachers to analyze each student's learning growth. They help teachers identify their teaching strengths and challenges, right? We can see which group of kids we're excelling with and which group of kids we need to work on to improve. And then finally, scatter plots enable teachers and administrators to start thinking about how to redesign their classrooms so that every student makes learning progress each and every year. In this class, we illustrated how to use scatter plots to interpret teacher and student learning growth. In our next lesson, we'll show educators how to interpret the wide variety of candle and wick reports on the learning growth